Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 131 of the Terminal City FC podcast, part of the Area 51 Sports Network. Talking all things soccer. Joshua Ray joined alongside Nathan Durek as per usual. So it's back to earth for the Vancouver Whitecaps. And it was kind of a tough ask to win at BMO Stadium against LAFC, but you obviously expected a bit more than that.
Kind of a weird match. It was an interesting matchup. And then you got a team with one of the best home records versus a team with one of the best away records meet up. Look, last year we met LAFC 6 times. The one time, only once, did we actually win against them was in MLS regular season away to BMO Stadium. It's tough to repeat that. I mean, LAFC is on another level. We know that. They're going to be a difficult team to beat in their own backyard. I don't think they needed any help to beat Vancouver, and we definitely gave them a lot of help.
Right. And just if you want to sum it up in a sentence, it was an off night for everybody.
Yeah.
That includes the coaching staff and the players.
Yeah. You know what? For about the first, I'm going to say the first half hour, and that includes the first goal.
Yes.
Yohei Takioka stood on his head.
Yeah, but that wasn't.
It could have been 4 or 5 by that
in the first
point.
10 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, in the first 10 minutes. Even, I think the first goal was around the 18th minute. But I find it difficult to blame Takioka for that first one. It was too far in front of him. I wouldn't have put that one on him at all. The second one, him and the entire back line. It was a bad night. It was an off night for everyone. It was a bad night for the back line.
Oh, yeah.
In particular, Matías Laborda. Blackman, not the greatest. And one guy who, even when he has an off night, usually isn't that bad, but tonight, on the weekend was glaringly noticeable for certain defensive errors was Andreas Cubas.
Yes, Andreas Cubas, even he had an off night.
Yeah, you could definitely place the third goal on him. And again, we can talk about Denis Bouanga later on, and what he was able to do in a bit of a different role than what we are accustomed to seeing him as. What did you make of Bouanga playing out wide on the left and just being absolutely lethal at putting balls in for what was it, Ortega? No. I'm mixing my teammates.
Oliveira.
Thank you.
Christian Oliveira, or Kike as they call him. That goes to show that Bouanga is an elite MLS player. I believe he's played on the wing before, and he can play both positions.
Yeah,
but he's not just a goal scorer; he's a creator too.
Took him a while to wake up this season, and I'm wondering if it is because it is a bit of a different role, and now he's finally embraced it.
Yeah, and 3 assists, 2 on Oliveira's goal, 1 on the third goal by Bogusz. And that guy pretty much owns the Whitecaps because every time they've played, Bouanga steps up. Like, remember last season in the Champions Cup or Champions League, what it was called back then, he scored a hat trick. He scored in the playoff game at BC Place.
I wrote in my preview that I thought the only saving grace for the Whitecaps is that Ryan Hollingshead was not playing, because he's another guy that happens to step up against the Whitecaps as well. But you know what? They didn't need him. They didn't miss him at all.
Need Hollingshead at all. And it was the Bouanga show.
Yeah.
But just right from the get-go, LAFC just put the foot on the gas and did not let up, and the Whitecaps couldn't catch up with them right from kickoff.
Again, this is one of those games where I agree with you. Everyone can look at themselves in the mirror and find something about their game they did not like. Probably quite a few things about their games they did not like. I don't know what else to say of that. It's one of those games where it's like you hope that it's just a wash. You wake up the next day as if it was like a Twilight Zone thing, and life is back to normal and you get back to work. You hope that it's not a precursor to something more endemic.
Yeah. Let's just hope it's not the start of a slump, that this is just a blip in
Yeah.
the road for the Whitecaps. And even offensively, it was tough to get going too. I mean, Fafa Pico had 2 shots in the first half that were on Hugo Lloris, but all the shots that tested Lloris were easy saves. Nothing where he really had to make a desperation save.
No, Lloris didn't have a lot of work to do, and I think that's credit to the fact that most of the play was in the Whitecaps,
The Whitecaps half,
right? Which is unfortunate because what we've seen from Lloris so far is, for as good as a distributor as he is, he's been suspect on his shot stopping this year so far, right? I mean,
and
in the first 10 games, they had 19 goals against, which is not something you expect from an elite goalkeeper.
But remember, he's in his late 30s.
Goalkeepers can last a little bit longer.
Hey, yeah, many have.
Yeah.
But even for the best, like Lloris was one of the best goalkeepers in the world for years.
And he's got a world. He captained a World Cup team that won.
Yeah, and I believe he's won a Golden Glove at least once. So, I mean, he's in MLS, but
yeah,
he's been a little bit, not disappointing, but not the way.
LAFC, you thought he would have adapted a little bit quicker. I don't know. Maybe the sun is getting to him. He's used to he's used to a cold London night.
Yeah, but maybe that's just it. But he's starting to get the hang of things.
Yeah.
But back to the Whitecaps. Brian White didn't really make an impact, and neither did Ryan Gauld. But Pedro Vite and Levante Johnson kind of did when they came on as substitutes.
It was it was very late in the game. I kind of wanted Vite to come in at the half.
Me too.
Because they needed something to just jolt them out. What was going on in the first half simply wasn't working. I mean, I get coaches that want to try to use their halftime talk to try and motivate them, and then take the next 10, 15 minutes of a second half to see, okay, did the message get through? I don't think that was ever going to be the case in this game. I kind of felt in the game that this one needed a bit of it needed a punch in the arm, and it needed it a lot earlier.
Yeah, it needed no, I don't want to say injection. That's too insensitive. It needed a punch in the arm.
Yeah. A punch in the arm is not the most, but yeah, I get what you mean. And to his credit, I will say, Vanni Sartini in his press conference afterwards did talk about his own faults in the coaching and the preparation of that game. They did speak to a bit of naivety in going into the match, but it also felt like, as far as hesitant, and I don't really want to say tired, but let's go with hesitant, as the Whitecaps were. It felt like they were almost giving their opponents too much respect, right? They were sitting back too much, thinking that, if I go and I press you, you're gonna skin me. If you do nothing, nothing's going to happen. Yes, you might get burned, but I mean, at some point, you can't just sit there and watch the other team. And I felt like that was happening a lot,
especially in that first half, like. On the flank, especially where Laborda was, Bouanga and LAFC just ripped them apart. And I remember looking at the LAFC Twitter feed prior to the match, and the in-house writer or reporter said one of the keys to the game for LAFC was to beat them down the flanks, and they literally did just that.
Yeah. The other guy I want to look at is before he got injured was Ilya Sanchez, and what that guy can do from the midfield, especially in switching play. And just stretching the Whitecaps out so wide. It's kind of weird, because for any lack of movement we thought that the Whitecaps were doing, they're still having to go back and forth following that ball. I mean, it was the control. I don't think there was a moment. There were some, and I think you said it when Vite and Laborda came on, where it did seem like the Whitecaps were able to string a couple of passes together, but never once did they feel like they were controlling the game at any point.
Not at all.
No.
Like LAFC, I mean, credit to them. Like defensively, they were pretty good as well. And also sucks for Ilya Sanchez. I'm not sure what was up with his injury, but you saw on the broadcast, he was in tears when he came off.
He was, whatever it is. I haven't heard what's happened since, but it looked bad. it looked bad. The other thing with sorry, a completely different point is with LAFC is there were pockets where you could try and attack. Omar Campos came on for Hollingshead, who wasn't playing, and Campos had a horrible game, a horrible 45 minutes about 3-4 weekends ago. And he's coming in cold. He's a guy playing on the left that you could have tried to exploit, but it just, because there was nothing going on in the offensive zone for the Whitecaps, you know, there's those little things in that make each game unique that they couldn't take advantage of.
Yeah, and they couldn't break down LAFC's midfield on the transitions, and Ilie Sanchez and many others, they just suffocated Ryan Gauld and Brian White.
The other thing, I was talking with Jason Ruderman, who covers LAFC, and he was talking about what we're starting to see, especially within that midfield, and the contribution of Timothy Tillman.
Yeah, Tillman, that's who I was.
Yeah, really, really coming onto his own, really being more of an attacking threat than he has been previously, and really, really fitting. And what it does is with Tillman really making that midfield his own, it's allowing someone like Bogusz to play higher up, because he didn't do that last year. He was further back. But by having someone like Tillman behind him, they found a way to use both of those pieces together. And I mean, this is a team that, I mean, they're firing on all cylinders. On top of that, they have depth that can come in if there's any issues on the pitch. It's, you know, they may have kind of been a little bit slow to the gate, but, you know, they're moving now.
Let's not forget, this is LAFC.
Yeah.
One of the elite teams of MLS. Yeah, they're not as good as they were so far last year or the year before, but they're going to bulk up in the summer window, especially with Olivier Giroud coming.
Yeah.
And that game showed that the Whitecaps are just not at their level yet.
Well, look at the attacking pieces they have. I mean, they had Kai Kamara on the bench.
Yeah. And he
right?
come on. I think he did.
And he did it towards the very end. Yeah. But I mean, it's their depth. It's the depth that they have that makes them very, very scary. And the Whitecaps, they took everything that LAFC threw at them and a bit more. So again, I hope that this one is one that they can just put behind them. They don't have a lot of time to focus on that match because they've got another midweek match happening tonight. And we might as well go to that right now.
Yep. I wrote the preview for this for Colorado, and Colorado is going to come out ticked off because they blew a 2-0 lead at home to San Jose Earthquakes last Saturday, and Colorado is level on points with the Whitecaps at 18 points.
18 points. Whitecaps got a game in hand, so that puts them a bit further ahead in the. They also have a better goal difference, but yeah, you're right. I mean, San Jose is not a team that people think that you're going to lose against, and especially losing from a 2-goal to lead. That is. That is something that can be disheartening to a team, right? That can hold on to you.
Yeah, and they had all the bulk of possession, better chances, but they ended up squandering that lead. In Colorado last year were second last in MLS, right above Toronto FC, but they've made some acquisitions in the summer transfer window, including bringing in American goalkeeper Zach Steffen from Man City. Jordi Mihalovic, they signed him from AZ Akinfor or something in the Dutch league, and he's a former CF Montreal midfielder, and he leads Colorado in assists.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of funny. You take a look at Colorado is like the Western version of Toronto in terms of like they've already matched the number of wins that they had all of last season at this point in this season.
Yeah, maybe the protest against Kroenke worked.
Well, we were talking about that in the offseason where, I mean, Colorado for so long did nothing. And then all of a sudden this window, they kind of opened up the purse strings, and it was a bit surprising. It was going to be, okay, you're actually doing something. Is it going to work? Yeah, it seems like it's paying off so far. A quarter or a third into the season.
Yeah, I mean, it's still a long way to go.
Long way to go.
But gotta give credit to Colorado for the way they've so far bounced back after a disaster of a 2023 season. Rafael Navarro, their striker, he leads the way with 6 goals, and he's on loan, actually, from Palmeiras until July. But they have the option of making it a permanent deal, and at this point, they might as well, right?
If he's got that much and he's already started, can you imagine if he, comes out of the gate, does that well for the first half of the season, and they let him go?
Yeah,
I mean,
the poor optics.
Talk about stopping your progression right in its tracks.
Yeah, and Chris Armas, he's the first-year head coach, and apparently he's coached a bunch of other teams around MLS and all that, even Toronto. He's a guy who preaches pressing and hustling. Pretty much what their tactics are. So the Whitecaps need to adapt to that tonight, especially with the altitude.
So, I mean, yeah, essentially they're not going to have a lot of time on the ball. They're going to have to, especially high-pressing teams, they're going to have to rely on they're going to have to rely on what Takioka is supposed to be good at, his footwork, right?
Right.
In getting that ball out quick, getting it up the sides, and using your speed.
Yeah, and Whitecaps have been known for being a pressing team too, and they gotta fight fire with fire when it comes to this. And Vanni Sartini yesterday, he talked about that Colorado's a tough place to play because of the altitude and the ball bounces it's different.
Yeah.
And you got to adapt to that too. And the Whitecaps have not won at Dick's Sporting Goods Park since 2019.
Really? Well, you know what? It's about time.
Yeah, and that game, that was a 3-2 thriller. And Andy Rose scored an 87th minute winner. So that's how long it was.
Yeah, if we're talking about Andy Rose, wow. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, he was a fun guy to watch as a defender. But, yeah, that's a long time ago.
Yeah. And this is I don't want to say must win, but this is a game where it's important to get points for both teams because the Western Conference is already tight.
Yeah. And
will be tight until decision day, until after decision day.
Whitecaps are going to be on the road also going through to this weekend that are playing their second match against Seattle Sounders, second match away to Lumen Field as well. Did really well in the first match. It felt like that match was what we saw was the lowest of the low for the Sounders. I mean, they basically lost the plot at the end of the match. Do you think Seattle has learned their lessons, I guess?
I would think so. But I'm just looking at their form. Yeah, they won on Sunday against the Timbers. I mean, they're slowly starting to turn things around. They're starting to win a little bit more. And they play RSL.
Look at their last 4, right? Including their USL Open Cup. They've won 3.
Yeah.
Right? Sure, Louisville took them to penalties, but, they got the win. Because what we saw in that last game was, I mean, it was very visible infighting in their own team, right?
Yeah.
2 red cards. The red cards.
The second one was just stupid.
Well, the second one was absolutely stupid. I mean, he got called out by the coach, right? It does make me wonder what they're going to be like. I think it's going to be a very edgy game, that one.
Yeah. Both teams will come tired.
Especially because it's interesting for Seattle is they're going from Cascadia match to Cascadia match.
Yeah. Shout out to Edgar from News of the Galaxy podcast. He commented, "I'm in the middle of the work, but I just want to say hi. Much respect, fellas. Much respect to you and the News Around the Galaxy podcast as well, who do a good job covering LA Galaxy." But
thanks, Edgar.
That's it. Seattle's playing tonight in Salt Lake, which also involves altitude. And then they'll come back to Lumen Field to play the Whitecaps. So both teams will come tired.
Yeah, I mean, Whitecaps have no excuse in terms of their schedule because pretty much every MLS team is going through the same sort of schedule with,
I think every team's playing tonight
midweek
as
games, game in, game out. Unless they're one of the MLS teams in the States that have decided not to be in the U.S. Open Cup, they might have a bit of a break. But I don't think. Well, let's put it this way: Seattle's not one of them.
Yeah, and I mean, the Whitecaps. Vanni Sartini has talked about that he loves that there are a lot of games in this month because it provides a challenge and it gives opportunities for players, like for almost everyone to play.
Historically, the Whitecaps have also done well with this sort of scheduling. Like you look at last year or the year before, like when they had that canceled game when Seattle was in the Champions League final, and the Whitecaps basically used that as a chance to reignite their team. I mean, all of that happened in May. You always had these Whitecaps where it was slow starts. They hit May, they figure themselves out, and they go through a run of a great summer. Bit of a different year this year. The Whitecaps started very well. My hope is that they can actually keep it and keep improving, right? That they're not allowing other teams to catch up to their form.
Yeah, and just because Vanni Sartini says, do the things they're supposed to do, and you already know what that is. And it'll be interesting to see what kind of lineup he puts out tonight. And someone I'd like to see start is Bjorn Inge Ufvik on the back line instead of Laborda.
I think I would be surprised if he doesn't start. Not only just because Laborda might just need some time on the bench, but also because of just how busy this schedule is. This is a time when you now use those pieces. Ufvik is a starter. Use him as one. He should be there. There should be some rotation between those four. I agree with you. I think he needs to start. Yeah,
and in the limited minutes we've seen him, like he's been good, like really good.
I've had no issues with him.
Yeah, and I think adapted really well.
It's kind of funny, but it's like I try to equate it to different sports, and I look at hockey. He's a stay-at-home defenseman.
That's kind of what he is.
Right? Like he's not going to be flashy, but he gets the job done. And he's that guy that you don't necessarily notice, but it's because he's just doing his job.
Weren't you a stay-at-home defenseman? Weren't you a stay-at-home defenseman when you played?
I was. I wasn't a guy that was going to score a whole lot of goals, but you weren't going to get by me to get to my goalkeeper.
And just also hope to see the big guns get back at it, like Ryan Gauld, Brian White. There's not really any doubt they'll bounce back. Same with Andres Kubas too. Kubas had off games last season. And then the game after, he was back to his old self. Like that's goes to show the kind of player he is. Like
I do wonder with this midweek game and on the weekend if we might see Sebastian Berhalter come in for a rare start in one of them.
I think we will.
I know he didn't do great when he came on in the last game, but and nothing against Kubas. I think Kubas, you're absolutely right. He's going to bounce back because I don't think anyone's a bigger critic of Andres Kubas than Andres Kubas. But it's tough to do that 90 minutes game in, game out when you're playing a game every 3 days. At some point, he just needs a break.
Yeah, and someone probably actually more likely that he'll come off the bench is Giuseppe Volvolina, the wingback they acquired from Adelaide United. I would assume we get to see some minutes from him at some point, maybe tonight, maybe on Saturday against
Seattle. Will. I think it's going to depend on how the game is played out beforehand, but we know that we're going to see him probably a bit more than the Whitecaps wanted us to see him, and that's because of Sen Adekube's injury. Vanni alluded to that about a week, or I think it was right after the injury when we found out exactly the extent of the scan that Adekube had, that Bolivina was going to get thrown into the lineup a bit quicker than they expected.
Yeah, and the guy, it's not like the guy needs a preseason. He just came off the season with Adelaide United. And he's already in mid-season form. And I mean, the guy's known for putting the ball in the box. So at this point, they need to give the kid some minutes to see what he can do. And I'm sure They will. So Whitecaps, Colorado tonight, 6:30. Will be tough to win there in Commerce City, but we'll see if they can bounce back from last week against LAFC and then Seattle on Saturday at Lumen Field.
There we go.
So Canada's men's national team has their coach, and his name is Jesse Marsch. And out of all the candidates that were listed a few weeks ago, I think he is the best choice out of all of them.
I agree with you. When you start to think about what he can offer, but also you think about his career trajectory,
Yes.
it becomes less surprising that he is the guy that he went with, especially because Marsch is a guy who expressed interest in the Canadian job
Years
when
ago.
it was actually available years ago, before John Herman took it.
Yeah, which was a pretty cool fact to learn about.
Yeah.
And the guy knows the Canada region. He was part of the CF Montreal organization. I believe he was their first coach.
He was their very first coach. He's the guy who basically built CF Montreal from scratch as an expansion team. He only lasted one season. If you want to take a look, I wrote a bit of a history on Marsch on Area 51. You can check it out. But he only lasted one season. Now, the thing is he did better than a lot of people thought he would do for an expansion team. But there was a big clash in philosophy between Marsch and Joey Saputo, president of Montreal, and that kind of led to...
Of course, he wasn't the first coach to clash with Joey Saputo.
The phrase Joey Saputo has problems with someone is probably one of the most common phrases in MLS. Let's put it that way.
And in Canadian soccer. But
yeah,
of course, Marsch went on to coach the New York Red Bulls and was pretty successful there. Won Coach of the Year in 2015, I believe. Then after that, he stayed in the Red Bulls system. He went to the Red Bull Salzburg.
With Salzburg, he did the domestic double twice, won the league and the Austrian Cup. In over 3 years, he did it twice.
And he coached the likes of Dominic Szoboszlai and Erling Haaland, by the way.
Erling Haaland, yeah.
And then he went to RB Leipzig to replace Julian Nagelsmann. Wasn't successful, only lasted half a season.
Yeah.
But then it was off to England. Leeds. Wasn't successful there either, but he had his moments.
You know what? He came in mid-season. He saved them from relegation.
That was pretty much the goal.
Right? That was the goal. Got through an off-season, started the next season, but they were exactly where they were before. When he was let go, they were in 17th. So they were one spot just above the relegation line. The thing is, you hope that when you bring in someone that they make you better, especially if you have an off season to start to try and tool that team to what it is your philosophy and what it is you see. I don't necessarily know if he made Leeds better. I think he just kind of kept them status quo. He didn't make them worse.
I don't think he made them better.
Yeah. There's an interesting, and I think I've got it on my my Twitter or X feed. You can go and find it. But it's like this. It's basically like an hour-long TED Talk by Jesse Marsch.
I haven't seen that.
He explains his whole system and what goes on. Because the one thing, I mean, you look at Jesse Marsch. I mean, he was an MLS midfielder for 14 seasons, right? He played for 3 different teams, won an MLS. I think he won 3 MLS Cups, won a Supporter Shield. But his midfield is how he played, is how he coaches, right? He is a midfielder through and through. And you start to wonder, like, okay, you're looking at his philosophy. Who is going to benefit from how he wants to play or his guidance on the Canadian men's national team now? And you look at people like Schoiner. You look at people like Payet. You look at very versatile players like Ahmed. It's going to be really, really interesting to see how he lines up. And the thing is we're going to find out in less than a month.
Big Copa America. And
the friendly matches coming up before that. Netherlands is on June 6th, and then France is on 9th.
Yep, and those are good opponents for Marsch to test the waters.
Oh man, what throwing someone into the fire right here? Like go against the second best team in the world, right?
Yeah, and Marsh is a guy that wants everyone in his team to buy in. Like he wants this togetherness in the squad. He's known for being a motivating type of coach.
He is known definitely for being a guy that endears himself to players. He actually talked afterwards. He was talking when he was on One Soccer just the other day after he got the hiring. He talked about like one of the most difficult things about leaving Leeds was the relationships with the players, right?
Yes.
Like he was for as good as Leeds was doing, which wasn't great. He was a popular guy in the dressing room.
Yeah, it really felt that way.
Yeah.
And in terms of tactics, Marsh is all about pressing, especially from the front.
Yeah.
And intensity. And
look, I know there's a lot of people out there that are not excited about this hire.
I'm not I mean, I like the hire, but I wouldn't say I'm excited.
But yeah, it's based on what was there. It's the one that and maybe it's just the pragmatic in me, it's the one that made the most sense. Not only for what's going on the field, but for his knowledge of the Canadian soccer landscape. And the fact that when you want a guy who is managed in many different places around the world, so he's bringing a very wide range of experience, and he's done that. He's managed in 4 different countries.
Yeah, and he's a guy that started from pretty much the bottom of the coaching sphere. And obviously it didn't work out at the top, but he has a decent resume. And it's not just pressing to win the ball back. His tactics is pressing to score as quickly as possible and stay in the other team's 18-yard box.
I'm not going to judge him based on the 2 friendly matches. I think those matches are basically for Canada to match up against the best in the world and to basically see where are we right now. Those are going to be very tough matches.
Yeah,
I'm going to wait until after the entirety of Copa America.
Yes.
And then I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to look back at everything that's been done so far. Here's where you started. Here's where you are now. What have I seen?
Yeah, I think
right.
Canadian soccer fans should have the same approach. Like whether or not you like the hiring of Jesse Marsh, like, oh yeah, he didn't work out at Leeds. He didn't work out at Leipzig. He doesn't have international experience. I think it's time we give the guy a chance to manage some games before we truly judge him. See what his system can do to the likes of Davies, David, Buchanan, and everybody else.
I think if people are judging him based off Leeds, you're looking at a 10th of his managerial career. So
yeah, and I'm gonna watch that hour-long TED talk by him because I've seen his coach's voice videos, but an hour-long TED talk explaining his whole philosophy is interesting.
It is interesting. Again, it's something I don't think a lot of coaches really do. You know, they don't want to give away the state secrets or anything like that. But it reminded me of what I got to participate in at the beginning of this season with Vanni Sartini and him going over what the Whitecaps are going to be doing this year, tactically, philosophically, and otherwise. I wish more coaches would do it because it's you start to see all these different ideas and how they come in, how they're begging, borrowing, and stealing from all these other areas, but then putting things together to make it their own. I mean, even the best coaches out there have said, oh yeah, I took that from this guy because, you know, why wouldn't I? It worked there. I think I can adapt that and integrate it into what I'm doing here. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see Marsh's version of that. And then also once you see it, see what happens when you're actually watching Canada play.
Yeah, and welcome Jesse Marsh to the Canadian men's national team. He's an American, which kind of rubs people the wrong way. And
we're not going to hold that against him.
I'm not going to, he's coached in Canada before, so we'll give him that.
Kyle Laren born in New York?
He was.
Yeah, so.
So was Jonathan David, apparently.
Sorry, I think that's who I meant was Jonathan David.
I think both of them. I'm not too sure.
Yeah. Anyway,
and we should also mention the his title, kind of odd. MLS Canada men's national team head coach.
Yeah,
it just is odd, but the owners of the Whitecaps, CF Montreal, and TFC, pretty much providing the funds for him. In giving Canada Soccer's financial situation, at least they stepped up.
You know what's there's many different things about this. First, I agree with you. The title is weird, but there's many different ways to look at it. One, you got the three biggest clubs in the country paying into the national program in a way that is tangible, right? I can see what it is they're trying to do, which is great. I'm happy that they're doing this. Do I need to see the MLS name on top of it?
No.
It kind of seems like it's just there to stroke a few egos. That's about it. I don't care. The other thing is owners of MLS clubs in Canada, this isn't the first time they've helped pay into the program. Kerfoot.
Yeah,
how many times has he given money to the Canadian program for the men's and the women's when it comes to finding training venues, paying for their trips, all these different things? So if you're complaining about the fact that it's domestic clubs paying into the program, I'm sorry, this isn't the first time it's happened. It's happened many times, and it's happened with Kerfoot with the Whitecaps. The other thing is I find it really funny that Joey Saputo is having to pay for Jesse Marsch again. Oh yeah, given the fact that they had a disagreement. I mean, come on. That is just that's a beautiful story right there.
Yeah, maybe they made up.
The other thing is Kevin Blue, who's a CEO and was general secretary, I think is his title when it comes to Canada Soccer. He came in with a background when it came to he was working for, I can't remember, was it SC Berkeley? And then Berkeley also with Canada Golf. Yeah. He came in as a guy who knew how to get money from other places, right? That's something that we knew Canada Soccer needed. Yep. This is unique. I get it's going to rub the wrong way, but he's kind of doing exactly what he said he's going to do. Yeah, he's so far find new and unique avenues to make Canada Soccer a viable organization. So far, well done to Kevin Blue. Yeah, I mean, you know what? It might not be what we expected, but he basically said, or his resume does lend itself to what has happened. So I think you look at this on multiple angles. Yes, the actual title is kind of weird, but everything that goes into it is like, all right, cool. The title at the end of the day, it's cosmetic. I don't care. Yeah, and Jesse Marsch, like when he goes on One Soccer, he isn't fazed about the task ahead. No. And he's excited to get to work because it's been almost 2 years since he left Leeds. And he's done a lot of thinking and learning and growing, not just as a coach, but as a player. Yep. But it's interesting to see what he learned over the past year and a half or whatever it was. Coaches take time away in between jobs quite often. Hopefully it paid off. Yeah, hopefully Marsch leads to the rebirth of the Canadian men's national team. And he signed until the end of the 2026 World Cup. Basically his contract runs out, I think, the month after the World Cup in 2026. June or July. I can't remember. Talk about a former Whitecap, but a Canadian international, and one that could be on the plane for the friendlies and Copa America, and one that should actually. Theo Bair has been named Motherwell's player of the season, and the guy just can't stop scoring goals for them. Or he just couldn't stop. 15 goals in the league alone. I believe that is 19 in all competitions. I think he's really, really found his form. He's found a home in Scotland, right? Yeah. And it's good for him. There was rumors over the past few days about whether Bristol City in the championship was going to make a bid for him. It seems like that's kind of unlikely right now. And I got to say, for Bair, is you've had a great season with Motherwell. Build off it. Yeah, and because I think the way it is right now, this should get him into the squad for Copa America. Yeah, and apparently it looks like Motherwell won't sell him unless they get a really
good offer, and which I doubt happens. And yeah, like you said, Bear, I think he should stay at Motherwell and build.
Yeah.
His,
From what I can see is I think the only interest that had come up was from Bristol City, but
Yeah.
it does seem to have cooled as of today. So,
I mean,
but the thing is going into the summer, things can change, and things can change very, very quickly. Motherwell is a team that if they can make a good piece of a chunk of change, from selling a player, and they can bring in, multiple guys kind of behind for that money, they might look at it. I think for Bear, he's going to have to evaluate this summer very, very hard on whether or not it's the best for him, because Motherwell staying there might very well be the best for his development and his career.
Yeah, and I'm just reading this tweet by a person named Louis Rowan from Scotland, a Motherwell fan. Theo Bear in the league this season had 21 goal contributions. His old club, St. Johnstone, had 26. They let him go for free.
Well, I think when he got let go from St. Johnstone, there was a lot of issue as to whether or not he was going to be able to stay in Scotland, because he was going to be one of the guys that was victims of Brexit.
Yes, because he's a Canadian from the UK with Brexit.
Exactly. So I'm not too sure what happened in order for Motherwell to keep him. There had to have been something there, because you're supposed to have a certain number of matches with, I think, your international or your national team. And at that point, I don't think Bear would have had it. He's going to get back there. So yeah, there's something must have happened in order to make it work. I just don't know what it is.
But just his progression since leaving the Whitecaps, like, he looks faster. He looks more confident in taking his shots. His dribbling looks better. Like,
some guys are late starters. Look at Brian White.
Yep.
Right?
And I guess not all birds were meant to be caged.
Yeah.
And Theo Bear.
That's the romantic way of looking at it. I like that.
Yeah. Theo Bear spread his wings in Scotland, and he should do so with the Canadian men's national team next month. All right,
I think he's a guy you bring in definitely as your third striker.
Yes.
It's going to be tough to get in front of Larin and
Jonathan David.
But he is there. He is ready to go if called on, which I think is great. I think it's great to have that depth. I think it's great to have, guys that are challenging, right?
Yeah, and he deserves the call-up.
I believe so, too.
100%. Back to MLS here for a bit. So, New York City FC beat Toronto FC 3-2 at BMO Field last Saturday, but that was not even the big story. The game ends with this big brawl with Sean Johnson pretty much seeing red and many other TFC players holding him back. The coaching staff was holding him back. And then after the game, John Herdman accused New York City FC coach Nick Cushing for punching a TFC player, not in this game, but in their last meeting at Yankee Stadium in March.
I think. Yeah.
And Cushing has obviously denied the allegation. And that it all started with Federico Bernardeschi complaining about time wasn't up yet, and I don't think it was, and he got sent off. But Tom Bogert reported yesterday that several players have been suspended.
Yeah.
Richie Laryea has been suspended 3 games, Prince Owusu 2, New York City's Tanasijevic 2, Sean Johnson is suspended for 1, and same with Herdman, 1 game.
Johnson's and Prince's were from red cards that were on the pitch. So they no supplemental discipline for them, but everyone else. And I think the funniest thing out of that is that Laryea gets 3 and the guy's still injured.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy gets suspensions and he doesn't even have to play.
Yeah. Oh, well. He wasn't playing anyway.
This is a weird thing. And it gets weirder when you kind of go beyond Toronto and look at MLS and what they did in terms of the original complaint back in March, because apparently they did get camera angles from the tunnel of where the alleged punch had happened, but no one talked to Cushing at the time.
Yeah.
So they're investigating a dude without telling him of a very serious fireable offense. I mean, first off, the decision, whether it's yay or nay, whatever. But the fact that you don't tell the guy, hey, this is an allegation against you, we have to do our due diligence. I feel like MLS dropped the ball here.
Yes.
I
They
think
did.
Cushing should have been told of what was happening back in March.
Yeah.
I don't think he should have been surprised by this information after a second incident happens. Um,
But Herdman only
but
brought it up last Saturday. That's
the fact that Herdman brings it up in a press conference, the way he brought it up, it's like he's not accusing, but he's saying, I was told by a person on the team of this. There's a little bit of media massaging in there to try and go as close to the line, but not over the line. I don't know if he is successful, but I don't know. If that alleged punch, was not caught on camera, of apparently the footage that they have. First of all, it's been 2 months. My guess is it wasn't caught, which is if it's not caught and nothing happened, Herdman bringing it up again is not going to go very, very well for Herdman.
Not much the league can do about it if it wasn't caught.
Yeah. And bringing it up again like this, sure, I get it. You're defending your player, but you're only going to end up penalizing yourself and your team by doing so. So I don't think this is going to have the outcome that Toronto wants. Yeah, and I'm not saying that's a fault against Toronto. I'm not saying the incident did or did not happen. But if it is not caught, if there is not evidence, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, no evidence.
That's the horrible thing about this, right? Is no one is able to move forward with this if no one can say that or no one can see it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't think that this is going to end up looking good for Toronto.
It will not. All right, let's move over to Europe. So Chelsea win again. That's 3 straight wins, and the Europa League dream is still alive somehow.
Someone pointed out to me that since Boxing Day, Chelsea, I think, has had the 3rd best record in the Premier League.
3rd or 4th. And Pochettino reacted to the news in the press conference. He was like, yeah, that's literally how he reacted.
Yeah.
And this one wasn't easy, unlike the first 2 wins. Smash and grab win, that's what you want to call it. But Mudryk did score early after another assist from Cole Palmer. But the rest of that half was stinky. They couldn't pass the ball right. Transitions on both ends looked bad. And then Willy Bolly of Nottingham Forest scored a header off a set piece, of course, and the defending just looked really bad. And that set piece coach they apparently hired from Brentford for next season can't come soon enough. I forgot his name. But that set piece was just poor. That whole first half was poor other than the goal. Like, no one was really getting anything going. And then the second half, sure, they looked a bit better, but that final third looked really bad. And they were getting burned at the transitions. And to make things worse, Callum Hudson-Odoi, the former Chelsea player and academy graduate, scores off the transition, 74th minute against his old club, and he actually celebrates. And it was a big goal for Forest because had they won, they would have been guaranteed safety, and Luton Town would have been relegated.
I can see emotions spilling out over for the fact that you might be saving your team. I'm
not going to slander the guy for celebrating. It was not even that big. It was more just like this.
He's not Emmanuel Adebayor celebrating in front of the bench of his former team, right?
Yeah, in front of the fans too.
Yeah. He's not doing that, but yeah, I get it.
And some Chelsea fans are like, oh, we sold him for like what, $3 million. Oh, what a loss. Well, the fact that he couldn't get game time because he got injured, and when he did, he didn't look as effective. It showed that he wasn't Chelsea standard. I'm sorry. I mean, I like the guy, but it was best that we parted ways with him. And I'm glad he's doing well at Nottingham Forest. That was his 8th goal of the season. It was time to move on. But then, like in the 80th minute, Raheem Sterling off the bench scores a pretty nice goal just from the outside of the box and ties the game. Then it's worth noting that Reece James made his first appearance since December with his hamstring injury, which he got surgery for, thankfully. And it's a shame this guy can't stay fit because he is a world-class right back. And that cross to Nicholas Jackson was a thing of beauty. And Jackson was having a pretty mid-game until that goal. That's the thing about Jackson, too, is he can drop a stinker and then all of a sudden he scores. Same with Sterling. I don't know what is up with those two. But for Jackson, he was in the right place in the right time. It's what he does best. And it was so good to have Reece James back for that because they needed his crossing and defending ability. 3-2 win over Nottingham Forest away. Forest are still fighting relegation. Chelsea are still in the hunt for the Europa League. And they sit 7th in the Premier League, the highest they've been all season. And you know your club has fallen off so hard when being 7th is seen as an accomplishment. Because years ago, this is a disgrace. Now it's seen as great. But Chelsea play Brighton today, away. Brighton are 10th. And they're a team that not as good as last year, but they're still a good team. And Newcastle play Man United today also, so that has big Europa League implications. And I just hope that Chelsea get the win. That's all. And maybe Pochettino could try the Cucurella inverted experiment again. Didn't work last game, but I'd like to see it happen again against Brighton. And I hope Nicholas Jackson's form continues. Because ever since he shaved his head, and ever since that game against Arsenal, he's been scoring goals.
Do you think Poch has done enough to save his job going into next season?
No. But if he gets Europa League, he can stay. Because I think that was going to be the case. He was always going to be evaluated at the end of the season.
So you need to win your last game. You need Newcastle to capitulate.
Yeah, and we need to beat Bournemouth next week at the Bridge as well. And Poch is desperate to save his job. And as much as I've slandered him for and saying Poch out, he can stay if we make Europa League. And but if we crash and burn at the start of next season, he's getting the boot. So it's up to Poch and the team to push for that Europa League spot. And it's been reported that the players like Poch and his man management style and don't want him to go. So if you like Poch that much, win.
I think the one thing Poch also needs is he needs to grow. And this was a problem, I would say, also with Spurs. He needs to grow a bit of a backbone when dealing with the owners of clubs.
Yes.
Right? He needs to fight for what he wants rather than just taking what owners or chairmen give him.
Right. And thankfully, it's been reported that Chelsea have dropped the under 25 signing rule this year. So that if Poch does stay, they'll back him, it looks like. And Paul Stanley and Lawrence Stewart's jobs seem to be safe. And hopefully they actually do back Pochettino. And some people are saying, well, Pochettino would have done better if he had less injuries, which as much as I don't want to agree with that statement, I kind of do have to agree. Yep. Because I really do think this team would be much better if Reece James and Christopher Nkunku were fully fit. Because those two are world-class players.
The thing is injuries affect everyone. So
yeah,
I get it. Injuries do affect a team, but they affect everyone.
But it's up to the coach to adapt.
That's part of being a manager.
Yeah, you got to adapt. And you can't just blame injuries all the time.
Not only that, but with the amount of money that Chelsea's been spending, you're telling me that they haven't worked on depth?
Yeah, that's the thing. That's why I don't really like the injury excuse. But given the amount of injuries the past 2-3 years, Chelsea are miles ahead out of all the Premier League clubs. I'm looking at the injury table. It says your games missed 309. Second is Newcastle, 258.
Are Chelsea at the top?
At the top, very top.
There you go. Okay. And it's a fair argument. It's just one that I don't like seeing people use.
I don't like that as an excuse.
Yeah.
And I also would like Christopher Nkunku to score today or next week against Bournemouth because we still haven't seen that balloon celebration. I hope he does. So I got to watch the Man City Spurs game, and obviously I know you had mixed feelings about that because of the Arsenal title implications. And just the start of the game, it was pretty open for both sides.
It was weird. It was weird in how. Yeah, the first 45 minutes, it was a very strange game to really get a read on. It did feel a little bit open, especially for all the other weirdness surrounding it.
Yeah.
Tottenham's lineup was a bit strange.
Yes.
There was no real striker. I mean, yes, if you take a look at the lineup, they had Son at top, but he didn't really play there. He kind of gravitated back towards where he is comfortable on the left. And of all people, that you started to see Maddison moving further up.
Yeah, I thought that was weird.
It's not really where you're going to get the best out of Maddison. I mean, it tells you right away that if Richarlison is not going to be your guy there, and yes, he's not, there's interest from him elsewhere. It seems like you're going to be able to get back your entire investment in him if you sell him. I think the time is to do it, and you got to get an out-and-out striker. You need a guy that is hungry for goals. You need a guy that is selfish for goals. You got to you need to do it. So this game, I think, said that more than any other game. The other thing is in the first half, it felt like Manchester City was kind of sloppy in their passing. There were definitely areas that were missed. Unfortunately, Tottenham didn't really capitalize on it. They did have a few chances, but being that it was level at the half, it was still anyone's game. And then Erling Haaland takes over.
Of course he
did. He was Erling Haaland did exactly what he does. He did exactly what he's paid for. One thing that I find really, really interesting, and again, Christian Romero going in on Ederson, I get it. Yes, it's a loose ball. The defender has absolutely, or someone like Romero has every right to go for that ball. He is reckless.
That was just reckless. Yeah.
So I felt very, very bad for Ederson. He was not happy when he went off. He was showing his anger at being taken off, just like Bentancur showed his anger at being taken off.
Yeah, earlier. I thought that was a weird substitution because I thought Bentancur was doing pretty good.
Yeah. But Ortega, when he came in for as little of the game as he played, he was man of the match.
Yeah, easily.
He kept. I mean, first off, Son on that break should have scored.
Yeah, we just shot it straight at Ortega, which didn't help.
There's a few other ones where you look at Spurs and you're thinking like, yeah, that they could have done better with these chances. But Ortega, I mean, it shows you again a team like Manchester City. If you've got money,
you can pay for depth.
The depth that you have on that team. Ortega's he's a starting goalkeeper on 75% of the teams in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Right. The fact that he's a backup on Man City is wild. The thing, and yes, okay, City wins the game. They break their hoodoo on not being able to win, not even being able to score at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
Yep.
Okay, good. The fan reaction. This is the most interesting part of this game because before this game, if you asked fans on whether or not they wanted to win and have a shot at Champions League or lose and make sure that Arsenal does not get the title, it was about a 50-50 split. And yeah, I'm conflicted.
I bet you were.
It is a very weird situation. The thing that really annoys me is fans of either side saying you're not a real fan.
You're not a real fan. Yeah.
I hate that.
Me too.
I hate that. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't tell other people how to express themselves with their love of a club, their fandom, or whatnot, right? let people be fans how they want to be fans if it's not hurting you or if they're not telling you how to do your thing, right? Don't be that guy. Don't
be that guy.
Don't have that small-minded mentality.
Yeah,
and I'll say it right now. I don't know. I mean, I lean towards wanting to win and being in the Champions League because your love of a club or your desire to finish in a certain area should not be dependent on someone else.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be dependent on someone else. If it is, okay. Do you, right? It's just not me. The thing is the strange thing of this is the fans that got what they wanted, having City win, they're not guaranteed the title.
No, like City could
they're not
lose
guaranteed the title. They could
to West Ham, and Arsenal could still win it.
Don't get me wrong; it's very unlikely. But if it happens, you're going to have what happened against your team and still not get your way. So, be happy for getting what you wanted, but don't think it's over yet.
Yeah, it's not over. It's coming down to the final day.
Yeah. Postecoglou was pissed in his press conference. He was outright angry. And the one thing I like is I like the fact that this is a manager that it doesn't matter. You want to win. Yeah. And I get the people that are angry saying, oh, where was this fight in the last 4 games? Yeah, the last 4 games sucked. But don't play shoulda, woulda, coulda. Don't play whataboutisms. Don't play, any of that game, right? You can only take a look at what is in front of you. I'm hoping that Postecoglou takes a look at this entire season, looks at the good and the bad, looks and, reflects that he cannot be as rigid in how he wants to play. You know what? If you're a team like Manchester City, yeah, you can do that. You can dictate 90 minutes. Tottenham's not there yet. They're not there yet, especially when they're playing Manchester City. And they need to come into different games with different game plans. I hope Postecoglou learns that. I hope they give him the 200 or 220 whatever million pounds that they say they're going to in the offseason. I hope he is very pragmatic in how he builds his team. And I hope he comes out in the next season ruthless.
Yeah, he needs give him the players he wants and let him do his thing. And the whole people like the journalists asking him about the whole winning and losing thing, and he handles it well. No coach or player wants to lose a game on purpose.
No.
I'm
sorry, but if you do, you're one step towards the line on match fixing.
Yeah.
Right?
Although there have been incidents where it has kind of happened before, especially with players that gamble.
Or we can talk about years and years ago with Juventus.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, yeah, it's rare. It's unbelievably rare, thankfully. But yeah, it's not out of the realm of what has happened in the past.
Yeah, and Postecoglou, he handles it well. Mate, nobody wants to lose on purpose.
Yeah. He said exactly what you expect someone to say in his position, right?
Yeah.
If he came out there saying, we came into this match and we wanted to, we were completely focused on a team that's not even one of the teams on the pitch right now. Well, then you got to wonder, what are you doing there, right?
Yeah. And good on him. He handles these really dumb questions well. And
I still love the one question he was asked earlier on saying, talking about how is he going to go about becoming a manager that wins a trophy? And he just looks at the guy. He's like, I have won trophies.
Mate, I've
won quite a few.
Yeah, and
I've won them with multiple clubs, with national teams. He's like, what are you talking about, buddy?
Yeah, the guy has a track record of winning.
Mm-hmm. He's won trophies. He won the first ever Asian Cup with Australia. He's won with Yokohama, and he's won with Celtic.
Yeah.
It's been one season with Tottenham, but he's done better in his first season with Tottenham than Ortega did with Arsenal.
Yeah, and kind of a Whitecaps connection with Postecoglou. He did coach Yohei Takaoka.
Yep.
When he was in Yokohama F. Marianos.
There you go.
So, yeah, just that game.
It's a weird one.
Weird game to analyze.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
but
Spurs could have done better with their attack. Like some of those chances were pathetic.
yeah, got to finish those. His son has got to finish that one.
Yeah. This might be the most bizarre story of the year in football. And
This,
we've
you
had
know
a
what
lot of
this is?
bizarre ones.
This is the witch doctor story from last year with Paul Pogba.
Yeah, but this is just even more insane.
Yeah,
So Dynamo Bucharest of Romania signed an ex-Barcelona defender named Edgar Ayi in February.
Yeah.
And he sucks. He sucks. And the club is now believing that Barcelona sent his twin brother instead, and they're all looking into this investigation.
yeah.
And this is
now,
like,
whether it was the club or it was the fact that it was this player Edgar who allowed his twin brother to play in his place, they said that the club is saying that it happened on at least 5 different occasions, and they're angry. They want investigations. They want to take out everything. Which, I mean, you got to be honest. Like, if this is true, it's hilarious.
it's hilarious, and
It's also
pathetic at the same time.
highly unethical, but it's very, very from an outside absolute neutral who doesn't follow Romanian football. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, this is funny. This is
Yeah.
pure entertainment. This is like the Parent Trap football edition.
This is I want to see the movie, right? Yeah, I want to see the movie of like them like plotting in the back room of like, you do me, I do you, right?
I stay here,
Nobody
Barcelona.
will
You go to
know.
Bucharest.
Yeah, it's
Nobody will know.
It's the twins in grade 4 switching places so that they can take the test in class, right?
Right.
Love it.
Yeah, this is love. This is this is literally the Parent Trap footy.
I know,
edition.
right? Hey, guess what? Mbappe is leaving PSG.
Really? I didn't know.
Yeah.
And the world continues to rotate and the water is wet.
Yeah. End of a story that I didn't care about when it first came out. It was always going to happen. I just didn't think it was going to be a farewell tour of 18 months?
Years even. Like this was talked about for years. This keeps dragging on and on. Will he stay? Will he go? He's like
And the
Clash
thing
song.
is the story's not over yet because yes, we were reasonably sure where he's going to go, but nothing's been named yet. So
No, here we go from Fabrizio Romano. And
no.
yeah, but again, he's won everything at PSG except the Champions League. So that'll pretty much be his legacy there at PSG. And yay, he's finally leaving. And this saga that's been dragging on for years could finally end.
Yeah.
Hopefully. So
here's an interesting one. Girona in Spain's La Liga did phenomenal this year and have a top 4 finish and are in Champions League.
Yeah, very impressive.
But there's a bit of a problem because of who is one of their part owners.
Man City.
Yeah.
I didn't even know this.
Yeah, people that own Man City also own Girona. And there is rules through UEFA on multi-club ownership when you're competing in Champions League. You can't have teams owned by the same people competing against each other in a competition. So this is really, really going to test UEFA's rules on multi-club ownership because it's supposed to guard against collusion in games. Yeah. So there's a proposal between the two teams. If it is not met by June 3rd, it could see one of the two teams demoted to play in Europa League. Obviously, it would be Girona. There's no way that Man City would take it, right? So it's going to be interesting to see what happens because right now it is the City Football Group, which owns 100% of Man City, and they own 47% of Girona. Yep. What the proposal is, there could be a need for the City Football Group to sell some of their shares to an independent third party that would reduce their ownership below 30%. I don't know. Right now it's kind of up in the air, but yeah, it's a bit of a weird one.
Yeah, it's a weird one. I mean, I don't know. Is this about like conflict of interest? It's just strange.
Well, I thought didn't this happen also with Red Bull when it came to
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, Salzburg and Leipzig.
Well,
so I'm not too sure. I mean, I'm thinking it has happened before. Now, whether or not they were forced to do anything, I don't know.
I don't think they were.
But yeah, this is a big one. And right now, UEFA is not really commenting on which way things will go. But they have just under a month to figure it out.
Yeah, and impressive to think Girona was in the second tier of Spain 2 years ago, and now they're in the Champions League.
This wasn't a story, but with how well Girona, I mean, you got to remember earlier this season, Girona was leading La Liga.
Yeah,
they've fallen a little bit, but the fact that they're, I mean, them doing what they're doing now is Union Berlin.
Yeah,
right in Bundesliga from what was it last year or the year before? So
something like that.
Yeah, interesting story.
Yeah, it's good to have like stories like this in football this year. Girona, Bayer Leverkusen,
yeah,
Atalanta and Serie A are in the Europa League final. Bologna finishing third or close to finishing third.
Yeah,
like who would have thought that?
Exactly. Another team that I think was in Serie B not too long ago.
Yeah, that is right. And speaking of European stuff, Champions League final is set. Borussia Dortmund will be playing Real Madrid at Wembley Stadium on June 1st. Real Madrid with the comeback over Bayern Munich. Joselu with 2 late goals, though I guess one of them probably shouldn't have counted because of the offside. VAR won't really get into that.
Yeah, I think is enough for everyone.
Sucks for Alphonso Davies, who scored his first Champions League goal in that game. But instead
also
of
Harry Kane breaks records in Bundesliga for scoring goals and still will not get a trophy.
No trophies. First trophyless season for Bayern in like over a decade.
I mean, like, what do you do if you're Harry Kane? And the funny thing is when they took him off the pitch at like the 85th minute or something like that, they were winning.
Yeah, and then Real Madrid just did what they do.
Did you see Harry Kane? They had a camera on him when the second goal went in.
Yeah.
And it looked like he was about to swallow his own tongue. Like he just hung his head. It's just like he complete disbelief.
Yeah. Like the guy's cursed.
I feel for the guy.
I do too.
He played for years on a team I love and support. It's through no fault of his own. I mean, the guy blew up records this year.
Yeah, but no trophies, which is still mind-boggling.
I mean, Bayern has got some issues. They got rid of 2 of their main guys that built Bayern, right?
Yeah, I think they just left. Oh, yeah. One of them did.
So, I mean, Davies possibly has 1 foot out the door.
Tuchel's on his way out.
In terms of players. It's going to be interesting to see what Bayern does, first off, with their front office, and then what they do in terms of building a team to come back and resurge.
Yeah, and who's going to be Tuchel's successor, because they pretty much are out of all the main candidates.
I think, was it there? I think they were looking at Rangnick with the Austrian team. He basically said no. I think they're looking back at Hansi Flick.
Yeah, they looked at Nagelsmann too, and he said no.
Yeah. I think people are looking at Bayern right now and saying they're a little bit hesitant because they don't know who's stirring the pot right now.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know. It might take a year or two for Bayern to get back.
I kind of have to agree with that. But the Champions League final, Real Madrid should win. But, of course, what I want is Borussia Dortmund to win for the romanticism. And it's Marco Reus's last game in the yellow jersey.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it'll happen. Real Madrid are Real Madrid, but could you imagine the storylines if it did?
Yeah. Interesting going on with the Premier League. Looks like they're about to hold a vote on whether or not to scrap VAR for the 2024-2025 season. First reported by David Ornstein. But Fabrizio Romano has actually just put out a thing saying that it was Wolves who formally submitted a resolution to the Premier League to trigger a vote at the league's AGM. That's going to be this June.
Yep.
They've listed a number of reasons as to why it should be scrapped. What was it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different reasons. Basically, I think it has to come to a 2/3 vote. I think 14 clubs have to vote in favor of scrapping it in order for it to be scrapped.
Yeah, I think that's the case too.
Yeah, it's a pretty big threshold, but based on what just happened in Sweden, where they voted not to have VAR, I think things might be headed in that direction.
I feel like too. And as much as I slander VAR and people slander VAR, I think it's a good tool to have because it sees things the naked eye can't see. And as we said before, it's not the technology, it's the people running it that are screwing up.
Yeah.
And
it's the thing is the technology is there. They need to find ways to it's a question of implementation, right? It's a matter of how it's being utilized. And yeah, don't get me wrong, there are some pretty glaring errors. The funny thing is the glaring errors are exacerbated because of VAR. But in general, VAR has lowered the level of errors within games by a significant margin.
That's right.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one. I'm for it, but don't get me wrong, there are issues with it. And it's the fact that they haven't figured this out after multiple years. I mean, VAR in the Premier League was introduced in the 2019-2020 season, I believe. It's been around for what, a good
5 years now.
5 years. How did you not figure this out yet?
Yeah, remember the whole Liverpool Tottenham debacle with the VAR, where we had the mic'd up VAR referees?
Yeah. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, that was an error of calamitous proportions. But the thing is again, that wasn't an error with VAR. That was human error, not figuring it out. Like, it was just human error in conversation.
Yeah.
Right? Like, yeah. The fact that
it was never meant to be perfect
boggles my mind.
It was never meant to solve everything.
Sport that has brought in some form of video review figured it out. Hockey, tennis, NFL for years before everyone. They figured it out.
Yeah.
How can you not figure this out?
Exactly.
I'm sorry, but it makes soccer in general look like a bit of a laughingstock.
It does.
So, I don't know. Sure, you can vote to not include it. That is your prerogative. But don't for a second believe this makes you look good.
Yeah, and don't think it's going to make everything better.
Yeah, it's not. Basically, you're going to go back to, yes, you're going to have the instantaneous goal celebrations. Great. You can celebrate the part of a game that's happening when the game is not being played. Yay. But you're going to increase the number of errors again. So if you're fine with that, if you're fine with the error level going up, good on you.
There's going to be more goals that should have been disallowed. There's going to be more handballs.
You're not going to stop the television audience from being able to see these errors.
Exactly.
So that's not going away. I think you're going to have more people pissed off because more things are going to get missed. Now, if they're going to say, "Oh, that should have been," but I guess there's no mechanism in place to make it correct. C'est la vie. I don't think that's going to be the reaction you get.
No, it's going to be more angry.
Yeah. Right? I don't know. I think whatever the vote is, the story about this is not going away anytime soon.
Yeah, and good tweet by the Lampard View on Twitter, replying to Fabrizio Romano. Sums it up: scrap the referees, not the technology. It's the people using it, not the VAR itself that is flawed. I'm giving that a like.
I'd be very curious to see what is the education program specifically for VAR, not just for refereeing in general, but for VAR.
Yeah, I always wondered that. Like, they train these people?
Because the thing is, you see a lot of the people that are doing VAR, they're also referees that do actual games, right? Like, they're on the pitch.
Yeah. Mike Dean does VAR.
Shouldn't VAR be a very specialized focus?
Yeah, there should be like courses. Or there should be.
So and the thing is I don't know what that is. There needs to be a greater threshold when it comes to it. I get it. There are issues, but it's not the technology. Technology is
people.
working fine. It's how people are using it.
Yeah, it's like
And the fact that
I'm not going to blame.
We haven't figured this out. It boggles my mind.
Like if I was working in an office, I'm not. You don't blame my computer for screwing up the files. It's me who screwed up.
Although we all
That's
know
the
those
way to put
people
it.
that will blame the computer.
Yeah, I mean, I would at first.
Yeah, exactly. Punch the computer.
Yeah. So,
It's-
before we wrap up,
Yeah.
So the Canucks Oilers series is tied 2-2. And it's pretty much what I expected at this point. So last night, for the Canucks, it was elation to deflation in like a minute. That pretty much sums up what being a Canucks fan is like. And fair play to the Oilers in the last game because they were by far the better team. And I mean, the Canucks were pathetic on the power play. They did find ways to tie the game, which was good, but the way they blew the last goal, they felt like the entire team fell asleep.
Hey, how you guys blew the last goal is how the Oilers completely capitulated in game one.
Exactly. So tit for tat.
Yeah. And the Oilers' capitulation was over multiple periods.
Yeah. And that goes to show that at this point, I don't want Philip Hronik to be signed unless he lowers his price tag because I'm not paying that guy $7-8 million because he's been poor the last few months, not just in the playoffs. Very poor.
I know I said it when we talked last week. I think you agreed with me, or I think you said the same thing. Is this is a series that does at least 6 games. Well,
At least
now it's going to be.
I still think it's going 7.
Yeah, very well. And I think we said at the very beginning is I have no idea who's going to win the thing.
I mean, most, as we said, ESPN pundits, everyone except Ryan S. Clark predicted the Oilers.
Which is I find that strange. It makes me wonder if it's just ESPN and American Network not watching Canadian hockey. I mean, I get it, but I thought it would be more of an even look.
So far, we're getting that
at this point in the season, right?
Yeah, and thankfully the Canucks didn't get shut out by Calvin Pickard because it felt like it was heading that way. Because over the years, the Canucks have been prone to getting shut out by backup goalies.
Pickard, you know what? He did well.
Fair play to Pickard. He played well.
As a backup coming in, he was a reliable backup when he was called upon. He's got almost 150 games in the NHL over multiple years, right?
Over a decade now.
For the fact that I think he's 32 years old, and this is his first ever playoff game, it's a nice story.
Yeah, it is a good story. And same with Archer Seelovs, too. Like, 23 years old.
Yeah.
Both DeSmith and Demko were injured. Well, I guess DeSmith is healthy now, but the way he's played has been incredible because if not for him, the series would have been over.
You got to keep your hot goalkeeper.
Yeah, I don't think there should be any point to rush Demko back, and I don't think Demko is even ready.
From what I've been hearing, is it's turned into something that is a little bit not serious, but more serious than what was initially thought.
Yeah, well, he's stopping pucks again, so there's that. But it's clear he's not ready.
Yeah,
and again, for the Oilers, I mean, Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl taking over. That's what they do. Oh yeah,
that pass at the end of the game from Draisaitl to get through everyone and find Bouchard on the blue line.
Yeah, that didn't help JT Miller blue the zone.
It worked.
And I'm not going to say anything about the high stick because I literally have no idea.
Canes?
Draisaitl's high stick near the end. That's what people are saying. It shouldn't have counted. I have no idea because the angle just made it look weird.
Right. You know what? The thing is again, that's another thing that you're going to be messed up by the parallax effect.
That's exactly it. That's why I have no idea.
Yeah. At that point, whether it is or whether it isn't, you have to go with what the call is on the ice because you don't. It's tough to have a camera that, unless you have a camera at ice looking at it, it's a tough one. I mean, it's not like what was it back in the 90s with the St. Louis Blues where they were so angry at a high stick goal that none of them showed up to the NHL awards later on in the summer.
Oh.
It's I that's one of the ones that Here's the thing: is I don't see as many people complaining about it as you would expect.
Yeah.
On top of it, you have absolutely no one from the Canucks organization complaining about it.
Yeah, and same with Kane's cross check on Elias Lindholm.
Yeah. Kane's cross check is a bad one. And the thing is Kane's reputation might go against him in this case.
Yeah.
I don't think this one was malicious. I think it was reckless. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a game.
You know, if Carson Soucy can get suspended for that cross check on McDavid, why can't Kane? It's consistent.
Well, I mean, Soucy's cross check was made worse from the fact that he got cross checked in the back beforehand and was going down. But the you see the one still that it basically looks like he's trying to guillotine him.
Yeah, and then there's that one with with Corey Perry just putting his stick in Brock Besser's face.
I find that hilarious. I'm sorry. Like if you guys have Zadorov tripping off in the media, Kane doing that is the Oilers version.
Anyway, this series has been really entertaining and good on Tocchet for calling out his team. Like they are too many passengers on this team, and
Tocchet
that
is
includes
a great coach. And you know what? It's Tocchet calling out players like that. It's an honesty that you do not see in NHL coaches. And my first thought is when I heard that was maybe it's just Vancouver coaches in general, because that's the sort of thing I would expect from Vanni Sartini.
Yeah, although Tocchet is less entertaining than Vanni Sartini.
Yeah, well, that's because he doesn't have the Italian flair, right?
Yeah, and Tocchet's done this kind of thing in the regular season before, and I hope it pays off because the guy knows how to motivate his team, and he wants his players to buy in, kind of like a Jesse Marsh in soccer. And that includes Elias Pettersson, only 4 points in the playoffs so far, and maybe he's injured, but Leon Draisaitl's not 100%.
Injured. Ekholm
and look at him.
Yeah, I mean, Draisaitl played last year in the playoffs with, I think his foot was hanging on by a tendon.
Yeah.
So, I mean, players play injured in the playoffs, and you still have to find a way. I'm not saying that it's right. I mean, players should be allowed to actually heal their bodies because they have to live a life after hockey. But it is the general mentality when it comes to hockey. The game comes first, for better or worse. So I'm not gonna judge that. Pettersson's got to find a way.
Yeah, and
you can argue about line mates and all that, but you can only play the game that's put in front of you. And if that's the game that's put in front of you, you got to find a way to make it work.
I get both sides, and yes. Getting a line mate for him in the offseason is a priority, but he just needs to step up. And for the Oilers too, I guess from the start,
I was so happy to see Nuge score. I was so happy to see. Nuge has always been one of my favorite guys because he's a quiet leader. To see him get on the score sheet, and it's only his second goal in the playoffs, he needed that. The Oilers in general needed that. They needed to remind everyone that we have secondary scoring.
Yeah, because that's been an issue all series.
But I'm hoping that it just opens up a little bit of belief.
Yeah, gotta get that bottom six going too. And Game 5 is set here in Vancouver on Thursday, and I believe Game 6 will be the same time as the Whitecaps Sounders.
I know that sucks on Saturday, but it is. I'll be doing split screens.
So will I. And before we wrap up here. This is being reported by Tom Bogert. This is Messi will not travel to Inter Miami's rivalry game on Wednesday night against Orlando City, and he's been listed questionable with a knee injury.
Maybe he was angry because he was forced to wait the 2 minutes.
Yeah, and not a good sign if you're excited to see him on the 25th here in Vancouver.
Buyer beware with tickets. I mean,
again,
we said that at the beginning. Just because the team's coming doesn't mean the player is.
Yeah, so we'll end it at that. So that concludes this week's episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Tell us what we're doing right. Tell us what we're doing wrong. Shout out to everyone watching the live feed on the Terminal City FC Twitter, Area 51 Sportsnet, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And this podcast will be out as soon as possible today. And I hope you're enjoying the show, talking all things soccer with a bit of hockey, because we kind of had to, given it was Canucks Oilers. We're Canadian. And follow me on Twitter, Joshua00. Nathan is at Enduric. Podcast is at Terminal City FC. Check out our work for Air 51 Sports Network as we continue to cover the Whitecaps and all things soccer. We'll have some stuff on Canada, obviously, during Copa America in the month of June, and even stuff with the women's team in the Olympics, I hope.
Yep.
So that'll conclude this week's episode. Peace out.
Take care.